The morning sky above Seoul was clear and blue when everything changed forever. Admiral Park Taemin was drinking his coffee in the United Earth Defense Command headquarters when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across every wall and screen in the underground facility. "Sir, we have massive contacts entering Earth orbit," shouted Communications Officer Bae Suman from her station. Her fingers flew across the control panel as data streamed in from satellites around the planet. "These ships are huge, bigger than anything we have ever seen." Park Taemin put down his coffee cup and walked quickly to the main display screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Hundreds of crystal-like ships hung in space above Earth like dark clouds. Each ship was at least 3 kilometers long and covered in strange, glowing symbols. They had appeared without warning, as if they had simply stepped out of empty space. "Get me a line to all defense stations," Park ordered. "Send out the first contact protocols immediately." 3 floors below, Dr. Kim Yuna was already at work in her laboratory. As Earth's leading expert on alien life, she had spent years preparing for this moment. But seeing the actual alien ships on her screens was different than anything she had imagined. The ships moved in perfect formation, like a school of metal fish swimming through space. "The design is completely unlike anything in our databases," she said to her assistant, Dr. Choi Hae-eun. "Look at how they bend space around them. This technology is centuries ahead of ours." Dr. Choi pointed at her scanner readings. "Their ships are giving off some kind of energy field. It's affecting our satellites. Some of the older ones have already stopped working." Meanwhile, on the orbital defense platform high above Earth, Captain Han Miso watched the alien fleet through her telescope. She had been a military officer for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The alien ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Ma'am, they're moving into attack positions," reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Lee Ji-hoon. He studied the tactical display with growing concern. "They've surrounded the planet completely, no gaps in their formation." Captain Han frowned. Something about their positioning bothered her. "That's strange. If I wanted to conquer a planet, I wouldn't spread my forces so thin. I'd concentrate them over major cities and military bases." Back on Earth, the alien fleet finally broke their silence. Every television, radio, and computer screen on the planet suddenly showed the same image. A tall, pale creature with silver skin and 4 arms appeared on the screen. Its voice was cold and mechanical when it spoke. "People of Earth, I am General Kravox of the Velturi Empire. Your planet has been selected for incorporation into our glorious empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Lay down your weapons and accept our rule, and your deaths will be quick and merciful. Resist us and we will turn your world into ash." The message repeated in every human language. Then the screens went dark. In the command center, Admiral Park felt the weight of 6 billion lives pressing down on him. Around the room, his officers looked to him for guidance. Major Nam Woo-sung, the head of Earth's fighter squadrons, spoke first. "Sir, our pilots are ready. We can launch within the hour." Park shook his head slowly. "Against ships that size, it would be suicide. We need more information first." Dr. Kim Yuna's voice came through the intercom. "Admiral, I need to show you something." The aliens' broadcast included hidden data streams. "I think they're scanning our entire planet." Park made his way down to the laboratory where Dr. Kim had multiple screens displaying alien data. "What are they looking for?" "Everything," she replied grimly. "Population centers, military installations, resource deposits. But here's the interesting part. They're also scanning for something specific, some kind of neural pattern." "Neural patterns? What does that mean?" Dr. Choi looked up from her computer. "It could mean they use mental powers as weapons. Maybe they're checking to see if humans have any psychic abilities." Above them all, the alien ships continued their silent vigil. In the largest ship, General Kravox studied reports from his scouts. This would be his 17th conquest, and he expected it to be as easy as all the others. The humans had primitive technology and no understanding of real warfare. "Their largest weapons can barely reach our lowest ships," reported his second-in-command. "Their military is scattered across hundreds of small nations. They have no unified defense. General Kravox nodded with satisfaction. Typical primitives. They probably still fight wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. This conquest will be over before it begins. But not everyone in his fleet was so confident. Commander Vex, one of the younger Valturi officers, had spent hours studying human broadcasts. Something about these creatures disturbed him. General, the humans show unusual patterns in their behavior. They adapt very quickly to new situations. Their history shows they can change their entire society in just a few decades. Kravox waved away his concerns. All primitive species adapt when faced with superior force. They will submit like all the others. On Earth, the 72-hour countdown had begun. In every major city, people looked up at the sky where alien ships blotted out the sun. But instead of panic, something else was happening. Humans were doing what they always did when faced with impossible odds. They started working together. In Seoul, engineer Kang Dong-min was already sketching plans for new weapons. In New York, Colonel Yoon Si-woo organized civilian evacuation routes. In London, Captain Song Hyeri studied alien ship movements looking for weaknesses. Admiral Park stood in his command center, watching status reports flow in from around the world. Earth's defenses were pitiful compared to the alien fleet, but he saw something in the reports that gave him hope. Humanity was not surrendering. Instead, they were preparing to fight. "Sir," said Communications Officer Bae Suman, "we're receiving messages from every nation on Earth. They all say the same thing, no surrender." Park nodded slowly. The aliens had given them 72 hours, but they had made one critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. And when humans had time to prepare, they became dangerous. The first day of the countdown passed, quietly, with both sides watching and waiting. But in laboratories, factories, and military bases around the world, humanity was already beginning to show why they had survived every disaster their planet had ever thrown at them. The invasion had begun, but so had humanity's fight for survival. The 72 hours ended at exactly noon on the third day. General Kravox had expected humanity to surrender, but no white flags appeared. Instead, Admiral Park sent a simple message to the alien fleet. "This is Admiral Park Taman of the United Earth Defense Command. Your ultimatum is rejected. Earth will not surrender." Kravox felt a moment of surprise, then anger. No primitive species had ever defied the Valturi Empire. He gave the order that had conquered 16 other worlds. "Begin the attack. Show these humans the price of defiance." The first wave of alien fighters poured from the massive ships like silver rain. Each fighter was sleek and fast, powered by energy systems that human science could barely understand. They dove toward Earth's surface, ready to destroy military bases and break human resistance in a single devastating strike. Major Nam Woo-sung was waiting for them. "All squadrons, this is Phoenix Leader," he said into his radio as his fighter jet screamed up through the atmosphere. "Remember your training, we're smaller and faster, use that advantage." Behind him, 200 of Earth's best pilots followed in jets that looked primitive compared to the alien craft. But what the human ships lacked in advanced technology, they made up for in the skill of their pilots. The first engagement happened over the Pacific Ocean. Alien fighters expected to sweep aside human resistance easily, but Major Nam had studied their attack patterns during the 3-day countdown. He noticed something important. The aliens flew in perfect formations, never breaking rank even when it would be tactically smarter. "Break and scatter," Nam ordered his pilots. "Make them chase us." The human fighters split apart like an exploding star, each pilot flying in a different direction. The alien formation, trained for battles against other organized fleets, struggled to adapt. Their perfect formations became a weakness as human pilots darted between them, firing quick bursts before disappearing again. Down on Earth, Dr. Choi Haeun made a discovery that would change everything. She was monitoring the battle from her laboratory when her equipment detected something strange. "Dr. Kim, look at these readings," she called excitedly. "The alien weapons are firing some kind of mental energy along with their regular lasers." Dr. Kim Yuna studied the data with growing amazement. "Psychic weapons. That's why they were scanning for neural patterns. But look at this. The mental energy is having no effect on our pilots at all." Above them, Major Nam felt a strange tingling. in his head as an alien fighter fired at him, but nothing happened. The laser beam missed and the expected mental confusion never came. Human brains, it seemed, were naturally resistant to Valturi psychic attacks. This discovery spread quickly through the human forces. Captain Han Miso, commanding the orbital defense platforms, noticed that her crew was fighting more effectively than their training had predicted. "Their main advantage isn't working," she reported to Admiral Park. "Our people are shrugging off their mental attacks like they're nothing." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, both sides had learned important lessons. The Valturi had lost more fighters than in their last 3 conquests combined. The humans had lost fewer ships than anyone had dared hope. But the real shock came from engineer Kang Dongmin's analysis of the wreckage. Working with incredible speed, he had already begun reverse engineering alien technology. "Admiral, their energy shields work on a frequency we can disrupt," he reported just 12 hours after the battle. "Give me 3 days, and I can build weapons that will punch right through their defenses." General Kravox stared at the battle, reports in disbelief. His warriors were the finest in the galaxy, trained from birth for combat. How had these primitive humans held their own against them? "Perhaps we underestimated their military skill," suggested Commander Vex carefully. "Their pilots show unusual creativity in combat." Kravox's anger burned cold and deadly. "Creativity is chaos. Discipline and order always defeat chaos, double the size of the next attack." On Earth, the first battle had revealed something that surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. Colonel Yoon Si-woo, watching from a ground command post, put it into words first. "They fight like a textbook," he observed. "Perfect formations, standard tactics, everything by the book. We fight like—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Like humans," finished Captain Song Hyeri with a grin. "Messy, unpredictable, and stubborn." The second wave of alien attacks came 2 days later. This time, Kravox sent twice as many ships and targeted civilian areas to break human morale. But he had made another mistake. He had given humanity time to prepare. Engineer Kang had worked without sleep for 3 days. Now human ships carried weapons that could penetrate Valturi shields. Dr. Kim had developed new tactics based on their psychic immunity. Most importantly, Commander Shin Young-ho had organized civilian resistance networks in every major city. When alien troops landed in downtown Seoul, they expected to find terrified civilians hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty streets and buildings that seemed to watch them with hidden eyes. The humans had evacuated most people, but left behind observers who reported every alien movement. The street fighting was unlike anything the Valturi had experienced. Humans appeared from sewers, rooftops, and abandoned buildings. They struck quickly and then vanished, leaving confused alien soldiers wondering where their enemies had gone. "This is not how conquered species behave," complained one Valturi captain to his commander. "They should be broken and demoralized by now." But humans were not broken. If anything, the attacks had made them more determined. Dr. Lim Taejin, working in a hidden laboratory beneath the city, had already begun producing copies of alien weapons. Communications officer Bae Suman had cracked their communication codes and was listening to their battle plans. Most disturbing to the Valturi was the human capacity for rapid adaptation. Tactics that worked in the morning were useless by afternoon. Weapons that were effective one day were countered the next. After 1 week of fighting, General Kravox faced a situation he had never encountered before. His forces controlled no territory, his casualties were mounting, and the humans showed no signs of surrendering. The quick conquest of Earth was becoming a long, bloody war, and for the first time in his career, Kravox began to wonder if the Valturi Empire might actually lose. 3 months had passed since the Valturi invasion began, and General Kravox was learning to hate the word adaptation. Every morning brought new reports of human innovations that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. "They modified their fighter jets again," reported Commander Vex, his voice tight with frustration. "The new configuration makes them immune to our tracking systems. How are they doing this so quickly?" Kravox studied the tactical displays showing scattered battles across Earth's surface. Red dots marked Valturi positions, but they were surrounded by blue dots representing human forces. The pattern looked wrong. In every previous conquest, the aliens had controlled large areas within days. Here, they barely held the ground their ships were parked on. "Send me Captain Song Hyere's mission report," Admiral Park requested from his underground command center. The report made him smile despite the serious situation. Song had led a team of just 12 soldiers into the heart of a Valturi landing zone. Using tactics that seemed insane to military textbooks, they had crawled through storm drains, climbed inside garbage trucks, and even hidden in food delivery boxes. In 6 hours, they had captured an intact alien transport ship and escaped with enough technology to keep Dr. Lim Tajan busy for months. "This should have been impossible," Dr. Lim said as he examined alien power cells that were still warm from their original ship. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but their security systems assume attacks will come from other advanced civilizations. They never planned for someone to literally crawl through the garbage." Engineer Kang Dongmin had set up production lines in abandoned factories around the world. Human workers following his modified blueprints were building hybrid weapons that combined Earth engineering with captured alien technology. The weapons looked ugly and makeshift compared to sleek Valturi equipment, but they worked. "Beauty is not the point," Kang explained to a group of worried military officers. "Function is the point. Their weapons are perfect, but perfection means no room for change. Our weapons are adaptable." Dr. Choi Hyun had made another breakthrough in her underground laboratory. After studying captured Valturi soldiers, she discovered that their mental abilities came with an unexpected weakness. They're used to reading thoughts and emotions from species with simple mental patterns, she explained to Dr. Kim Yuna. "But human consciousness is incredibly complex. We have layers of conscious thought, subconscious processing, and emotional responses all running at the same time. It's like trying to listen to one conversation in a room full of people all talking at once." This discovery led to new tactics. Commander Shin Young-ho organized resistance cells that used human psychological complexity as a weapon. When Valturi troops tried to read human minds to predict attacks, they got confused by the chaos of human thought patterns. Plans that seemed clear and logical to alien minds became impossible to follow when mixed with human creativity, fear, hope, and stubborn determination. The Valturi had another problem they had never faced before. In previous conquests, defeating the military meant the war was over. Civilians would surrender once their protectors were gone. But Earth's civilians refused to act like civilians. Kim Nari had been a teacher before the invasion. Now she led a network of ordinary people who gathered intelligence, sabotaged alien equipment, and helped military units move through occupied territory. Her kindergarten students had been evacuated to safety, but she remained behind to fight with weapons she learned to use from internet videos. "The aliens keep looking for our command structure," she reported to Commander Shin during a secret meeting in an abandoned subway station. "They think if they can destroy our leadership, we'll surrender. They don't understand that every human is capable of making decisions and fighting back." This was perhaps the most confusing aspect of human resistance for the Valturi. Their empire was built on strict hierarchy. Orders came from the top and flowed down through ranks of obedient soldiers. When human command posts were destroyed, new leaders simply appeared from the ranks. When those leaders were killed, ordinary people took their place. Communications officer Bae Suman had tapped into alien communications and was learning disturbing things about Valturi psychology. "Admiral, I think we're breaking them mentally," she reported. "Their communications show increasing panic and confusion. They keep asking their commanders for new orders to deal with situations that have never happened before." The psychological pressure was worst on the alien soldiers doing the actual fighting. They had been trained to conquer civilized species that fought in organized, predictable ways. Humans fought like no species they had ever encountered. Captain Moon Jae-ho led a unit that specialized in impossible rescues. When aliens captured human prisoners, Moon's team would appear from directions that should have been impassable. They rescued people from underground bunkers by coming through the ceiling. They saved prisoners from island facilities by swimming underwater for distances that should have killed them. They extracted hostages from high-security buildings by climbing up elevator shafts that aliens thought were too narrow for human bodies. "How do they keep doing this?" demanded one frustrated Valturi commander. "We guard against every logical approach, but they keep finding ways that aren't logical." The answer would have horrified him. Humans weren't being logical. They were being desperate, creative, and willing to try things that had never been attempted before. Where Valturi saw impossible obstacles, humans saw problems that just needed different solutions. Dr. Ryu Jiwon had spent the last month developing biological weapons specifically designed to target Valturi physiology without harming humans. Her research had uncovered something interesting about alien evolution. "They've eliminated most diseases from their worlds," she explained to Admiral Park. "Their immune systems are incredibly advanced, but they've never encountered Earth bacteria. We might be able to develop agents that won't kill them, but will make them very sick." Intelligence officer An Soo-young had been analyzing alien prisoners and discovered something that changed everything. The Valturi Empire was not as strong as it appeared. Captured soldiers revealed that several conquered worlds were in rebellion, and the Empire's resources were stretched thin. "This invasion was supposed to be easy," she reported. "They needed a quick victory to show their strength to other rebellious worlds. Instead, we're proving that the mighty Valturi Empire can be defeated." As the third month of fighting ended, General Kravox faced a situation no Valturi commander had ever experienced. His forces were spread across an entire planet, fighting an enemy that refused to be conquered. Worse, reports were coming in from other parts of the Empire about human tactics being copied by other rebellious species. The war for Earth was becoming something much larger. It was becoming a war for the future of the galaxy, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months after the invasion began, Admiral Park stood in front of a massive holographic display showing Earth from space. The alien ships still surrounded the planet like a deadly necklace, but something had changed. They were no longer moving in perfect formations. Some ships showed battle damage, others had been completely destroyed. "Operation Prometheus is ready to launch," reported Captain Song Hyeri. She had spent weeks planning humanity's first major counterattack against the alien fleet itself. The plan was typically human in its apparent insanity. Instead of trying to match the aliens' superior technology, they would use Earth's most dangerous feature, the humans living on it. Kim Nari had expanded her resistance network beyond anything the aliens thought possible. Her ordinary people now included former soldiers, engineers, pilots, doctors, and thousands of civilians who had learned military skills during 6 months of occupation. They had been mapping alien movements, sabotaging equipment, and preparing for this moment. "Every major alien installation on Earth will be hit simultaneously," Kim reported from her hidden command center beneath Seoul. "They won't know which attacks are real and which are diversions until it's too late." The operation began at dawn. In New York, engineer Kang Dongmin's hybrid weapons tore through the shields of a Valturi supply depot. In Tokyo, Commander Shin Young-ho led civilians, armed with alien weapons in an assault on a communication station. In London, Dr. Ryu Jiwon's biological agents forced an entire alien garrison to retreat to their ships. But the most important part of the operation was happening in space. Pilot Jang Min-hyuk had earned a reputation as Earth's most dangerous fighter, Ace. He had shot down 47 alien fighters and lived through battles that killed veteran pilots. Now he was leading a squadron through the most dangerous mission of the war. "Follow me through the debris field," he radioed to his pilots. "Stay close and trust your instincts." The debris field had been created by 6 months of space battles. Broken ships, destroyed satellites, and scattered wreckage formed a maze that stretched for thousands of kilometers around Earth. The Valturi considered it impassable. Their perfect ships and precise navigation systems couldn't handle the chaotic environment. But human pilots had grown up playing video games and flying through thunderstorms. Chaos was their natural element. Jang's squadron weaved through the debris like dancers, their patched-together ships sliding past obstacles that would have destroyed alien craft. Behind them, they pulled cargo containers filled with Dr. Lim Taejun's newest invention, human-built nuclear mines designed with alien technology. The Valturi fleet never saw them coming. The first explosion lit up the night sky as far away as Australia. A Valturi command ship, built to withstand the most advanced weapons in their empire, cracked open like an egg when human nuclear fire met alien energy shields. The explosion chain reacted through 3 nearby ships before the aliens realized they were under attack. General Kravox felt his ship shake from the distant explosions and knew his worst fears were coming true. The humans had stopped defending and started attacking. "How did they get through our sensor net?" he demanded. Commander Vex studied the tactical displays with growing dread. "Sir, they use the debris field. Our sensors can't track small objects through all that wreckage. But somehow their pilots can fly through it." The space battle raged for 18 hours. When it ended, the Valturi fleet had lost 12 major ships and dozens of smaller craft. More importantly, they had lost something that mattered more than ships. They had lost their air of invincibility. Down on Earth, the coordinated attacks had captured enough alien equipment to outfit entire human armies. Dr. Choi Haeun was studying the most important prize of all, a captured Valturi communication system that was still connected to their empire-wide network. "Admiral, you need to see this," she called excitedly from her laboratory. "I'm intercepting messages from across the Valturi Empire. They're in serious trouble." The messages painted a picture that amazed everyone in the command center. The Valturi Empire was fighting rebellions on 7 different worlds. Their military was stretched to its breaking point. The invasion of Earth was supposed to be a quick victory that would free up troops for other battles. Instead, Earth had become a meat grinder that was consuming Valturi resources and morale. "Look at this message." Intelligence Officer An Soo-young pointed to a communication from the Valturi homeworld. "They're recalling troops from 2 other sectors to reinforce the Earth invasion. That means those worlds will have fewer occupation forces." Admiral Park felt the first stirring of an idea that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. "What if we don't just defend Earth? What if we help those other worlds fight back?" The idea was so audacious, it took everyone's breath away. Humans had been fighting for their own survival. Now they were talking about liberating other worlds. Captain Moon Jae-ho volunteered to lead humanity's first interstellar mission. "We captured enough alien ships to reach their territory. If we can make contact with the rebels on other worlds, we can coordinate attacks across their entire empire." The mission launched 2 weeks later. 3 captured Valturi ships, modified with human technology and crewed by volunteers, slipped away from Earth during a massive diversionary battle. Their destination was a world called Kepler 442b, where intelligence reports suggested a major rebellion was brewing. Moon's ships reached the system after a journey that should have taken trained Valturi crews 3 days, but took human crews only 2. They had modified the engines with typical human disregard for safety margins. What they found amazed them. Kepler 442b was inhabited by a species of 4-armed humanoids, who had been fighting Valturi occupation for 2 years. They had developed tactics remarkably similar to human resistance methods: small unit actions, hit-and-run attacks, and the use of civilian networks to support military operations. "The Valturi make the same mistakes everywhere," observed Captain Moon as he met with rebel leaders in an underground cave system. "They assume all species think like they do. They can't adapt to enemies who don't follow their rules. The human arrival changed everything for the rebels. Moon's crews shared human tactics, weapons designs, and most importantly, proof that the mighty Valturi could be defeated. Within days, the rebellion had spread to 3 more worlds." Back on Earth, General Kravox received reports that his empire was falling apart. Humans were appearing throughout Valturi space like a virus, spreading rebellion and chaos wherever they went. Species that had been conquered decades ago were suddenly fighting back with new tactics and determination. "How many humans are there?" he demanded. "Intelligence estimates suggest no more than 30 ships total," replied Commander Vex. "Perhaps 300 humans spread across our entire empire." Kravox stared at the reports in disbelief. 300 humans were destroying an empire that had ruled over 17 worlds for centuries. "This is impossible. How can so few cause so much damage?" Commander Vex had spent months studying human tactics and psychology. He had an answer that his superior would not want to hear. "Sir, I believe the humans are not fighting to conquer. They are fighting to liberate. Every species they contact becomes more dangerous. Not because the humans give them better weapons, but because the humans give them something else." "What?" "Hope, sir. The humans prove that resistance is possible, and hope, it seems, is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy." General Kravox looked out at the stars and realized that his empire was losing a war to a species that had barely learned to leave their home planet. The Valturi had made a terrible mistake when they decided to invade Earth. They had awakened humanity. And now humanity was waking up the galaxy. 1 year after the first Valturi ships appeared over Earth, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar warship. The vessel had been built from captured alien technology, human engineering, and pure determination. Its name was painted on the hull in both Korean and English. Indomitable. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Valturi outposts," reported Communications Officer Bae Suman. Her voice carried a note of amazement that had become common among the crew. Every day brought news that would have been impossible to believe just months ago. The war had spread far beyond Earth. Captain Moon Jae-ho's initial mission had sparked rebellions across the Valturi Empire. Now human ships appeared regularly in alien space, not as invaders, but as liberators carrying hope and tactical knowledge to oppressed worlds. "Set course for the Rigel system," Park ordered. "Intelligence reports suggest the Valturi are massing their remaining fleet there for a final stand." In the engineering section, Kang Dongmin supervised the maintenance of weapons systems that mixed human creativity with alien technology. The ship's arsenal would have horrified both human and Valturi engineers 6 months ago. Nothing matched, everything was improvised, and safety protocols had been cheerfully ignored in favor of effectiveness. "These modifications shouldn't work," muttered his assistant, staring at a power coupling that connected human nuclear reactors to Valturi energy weapons. "That's what makes them so effective," Kang replied with a grin. "The aliens spend so much time making things perfect that they forget to make them adaptable. We make things that work, and we fix them when they break." Meanwhile, Dr. Kim Yuna was analyzing reports from across the former Valturi Empire. What she discovered changed humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. "Admiral, the Valturi weren't just conquerors," she reported during the daily briefing. "They were the galaxy's bullies. For 300 years, they've prevented any species from developing advanced technology or forming alliances. They kept everyone isolated and weak." Intelligence Officer An Soo-young had been coordinating with rebel groups throughout Valturi space. Her reports painted a picture of an empire that had been rotten from the core. "The Valturi ruled through fear and intimidation," she explained. "They would conquer a world, then move most of their fleet somewhere else, leaving just enough troops to suppress rebellion. It worked because no one believed resistance was possible. Until humans showed up," added Dr. Choi Hyun, who had been studying alien psychology. "We proved that advanced technology doesn't automatically mean victory. Now every oppressed species in the galaxy knows they can fight back." The transformation of the galaxy was happening faster than anyone had predicted. World after world was throwing off Valturi rule. Some rebellions succeeded immediately when local Valturi forces simply abandoned their posts. Others required human assistance, which arrived in the form of small fleets carrying weapons, tactics, and most importantly, experienced fighters. Commander. Shin Young-ho had evolved from organizing Earth's resistance to training rebels across multiple worlds. His students were learning that human tactics worked against any rigid military hierarchy. "The key is unpredictability," he taught a group of 4-armed Keplerian rebels. "Your enemies expect you to follow logical patterns. Instead, be illogical. Attack when retreat makes sense. Retreat when attack makes sense. Make them chase you into situations they never planned for." Captain Song Hyeri commanded a fast attack squadron that specialized in hit-and-run raids deep in Valturi territory. Her ships would appear at the edge of a system, destroy supply convoys, and vanish before reinforcements arrived. The psychological effect was devastating to Valturi morale. They're so used to controlling everything that they panic when something happens they didn't plan for, she observed after her latest raid. We're not just destroying their supplies, we're destroying their confidence. The Valturi military was collapsing from within. Officers who had never experienced defeat were making increasingly desperate decisions. Troops who had always been told they were invincible were discovering they could be beaten by primitive species using inferior tactics. General Kravox, now commanding the last major Valturi fleet, had retreated to the Rigel system to make his final stand. His once mighty armada had shrunk to fewer than 200 ships, and many of those were damaged or undermanned. "Sir, we could negotiate a ceasefire," suggested Commander Vex. He had grown tired of losing battles to an enemy that shouldn't have existed. Kravox's response was cold fury. "The Valturi Empire does not negotiate with primitives. We will restore order to the galaxy by destroying the source of this chaos." But Kravox was fighting the last war while humanity was already planning the next peace. Ambassador Lee Sun-hee had arrived in Valturi space aboard a diplomatic vessel, carrying proposals for the post-war galaxy. Her message to rebel worlds was simple. "We didn't come here to replace one empire with another. We came to help you build something better." The final battle of the war took place in the Rigel system, on a date that would become a galactic holiday. Admiral Park's combined fleet of human ships and rebel allies faced off against the remnants of the Valturi Armada. The battle was brief and decisive. Valturi ships, designed for fighting disciplined fleets, couldn't cope with the chaos of multi-species tactics. Human fighters darted between alien formations while Keplerian bombers struck from unexpected angles. A species of crystalline beings contributed ships that could change shape mid-battle, confusing Valturi targeting systems completely. Pilot Jang Min-hyuk led the final charge against Kravox's flagship. His fighter, a hybrid of human reflexes and alien technology, slipped through defenses that should have been impenetrable. "This is for Earth," he said as his weapons found their target. The explosion of the Valturi command ship ended 3 centuries of galactic oppression. General Kravox survived the battle, rescued from his destroyed ship by human medical teams. When he was brought before Admiral Park, the defeated alien commander asked a question that had been haunting him for months. "How did you do it? How did one primitive world destroy an empire that ruled the galaxy?" Park considered the question carefully before answering. "You made the same mistake that bullies always make. You assumed that being strong meant you didn't have to be smart. You thought advanced technology meant you didn't need to adapt. Most importantly, you forgot that people fight hardest when they're fighting for their freedom." Kravox nodded slowly, finally understanding. "You never fought like conquerors, you fought like liberators, because that's what we are," Park replied. "We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We wanted to free it." As news of victory spread across the former Valturi Empire, celebrations erupted on hundreds of worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries began talking about cooperation. Trade routes that had been closed for generations reopened. Scientific knowledge that had been suppressed began flowing freely again. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known, that diversity and freedom were stronger than uniformity and oppression. Dr. Lim Taejin was already working on plans to share human technology with former Valturi subjects. "Imagine what we can accomplish when every species contributes their strengths instead of hiding them from a single oppressor." The Valturi Empire was dead. In its place, something unprecedented was being born, a galactic community based on cooperation instead of conquest, and it all started because humanity refused to surrender. 2 years had passed since General Kravox's surrender in the Rigel system. The galaxy barely resembled the fearful, oppressed place it had been under Valturi rule. Ambassador Lee Sun-hee stood in the great hall of the newly constructed Galactic Cooperation Center, watching representatives from 47 different species work together on problems their worlds hadn't been allowed to discuss for centuries. "Ambassador, the Andromedan delegation has agreed to share their medical technology," reported her assistant, Dr. Park Min-jae. "In exchange, we're providing them with our agricultural techniques and the Keplerian mathematics systems." Lee smiled as she watched a group of crystalline beings explain quantum physics to a delegation of four-armed humanoids, while human engineers sketched improvements to their spacecraft designs. This was what the galaxy could become when fear, no longer ruled. The transformation had not been easy. 47 worlds needed new governments. Trade systems that had been designed around Valturi control required complete rebuilding. Most challenging of all, species that had been enemies for generations needed to learn cooperation. Admiral Park, now commanding the Galactic Defense Fleet, faced the ongoing challenge of maintaining peace without becoming the new oppressors. His fleet included ships from dozens of worlds, all working together under principles humanity had established. No single species commands the fleet, he had insisted during the initial negotiations. Command rotates between worlds based on expertise and need, not conquest or intimidation. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Captain Songhyeri now worked alongside former Valturi officers who had joined the defense fleet after their empire's surrender. Commander Vex had become one of her most trusted advisors, his knowledge of Valturi tactics helping the fleet prevent the rise of new oppressors. The humans taught us something our empire never understood, Vex observed during a joint training exercise. Strength comes from unity, not dominance. When people fight together by choice, they're far more effective than when they're forced to obey. On Earth, the homeworld had become the unofficial capital of the galactic community. Not because humans had conquered anything, but because they had proven that even the smallest world could make a difference when its people refused to surrender their freedom. Dr. Kim Yuna now directed the Galactic Scientific Exchange, where researchers from every known species shared knowledge freely. Her laboratories had become centers of innovation that produced breakthroughs weekly. When 47 different ways of thinking work on the same problem, solutions appear that none of us could have found alone, she explained to a group of young researchers from 12 different worlds. Engineer Kang Dong-min had established manufacturing centers throughout the former Valturi territory. His factories produced hybrid technologies that combined the best innovations from multiple species. Weapons had been converted to tools, warships to exploration vessels, and fear to hope. The former Valturi worlds presented the greatest challenges. Generations of oppression had left many populations without experience in self-governance. Some had requested human administrators temporarily. Others had formed councils with representatives from multiple species. Commander Shin Young-ho had taken on the massive task of helping former Valturi subjects build their own defense forces. His students were learning that the best military was one that protected people rather than controlling them. A good soldier fights to end wars, not start them, he taught cadets from a dozen different species. Your job is to make sure your people can live in peace, not to make your enemies live in fear. Dr. Choi Haeun's research into interspecies psychology had revealed something that explained humanity's success in uniting the galaxy. Different species thought in fundamentally different ways, but those differences were strengths rather than weaknesses when properly coordinated. Humans think chaotically but adaptably, she explained in a report that became required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. Valturi thought logically but rigidly. Keplerians think mathematically but struggle with emotions. When we combine all these thinking styles, we solve problems that no single species could handle. The most remarkable transformation had occurred in General Kravox himself. The former conqueror had spent 2 years in comfortable captivity, studying human culture and philosophy. When he was finally released, he shocked everyone by requesting permission to establish a research institute dedicated to preventing future galactic wars. I spent my life believing that order required oppression, he admitted during his first public speech as a free being. Humans taught me that true order comes from cooperation, not conquest. I want to spend the rest of my life making sure no species ever makes the mistakes the Valturi made. His institute became a center for studying peaceful conflict resolution and cultural exchange. Former enemies worked together to understand why species went to war and how to prevent it. The research was funded by contributions from worlds that had once fought each other. Captain Moon Jae-ho commanded humanity's first deep space exploration fleet, searching for new civilizations beyond the former Valturi territory. His ships carried diplomats, scientists, and teachers rather than soldiers and conquerors. "Our message is simple," he explained to his crews before each mission. "We come in peace, we offer friendship, and we prove that the galaxy is safe for freedom." Intelligence. Officer An Soo-young had become the director of the Galactic Information Network, ensuring that information flowed freely between worlds. The network prevented the kind of isolation and ignorance that had allowed the Valturi Empire to control so many species for so long. "Knowledge belongs to everyone," she declared during the network's inauguration ceremony. "When people understand each other, they're less likely to fear each other, and when fear disappears, war becomes unnecessary." Dr. Ryu Jiwon had established medical centers throughout the galaxy, sharing treatments and cures that had been developed by different species. Diseases that had plagued some worlds for millennia were being eliminated by medicines created on distant planets. Communications Officer Bae Suman managed the galactic communication system that kept all worlds connected. Her networks carried everything from scientific data to cultural exchanges, ensuring that no world would ever again face threats in isolation. Pilot Jang Min-hyuk had retired from combat flying to become an instructor at the Galactic Flight Academy. His students learned not just how to fly ships, but how to fly them in cooperation with pilots from other species whose reflexes and thinking patterns were completely different. "The best squadrons are those with the most diversity," he taught his cadets. "When every pilot brings different strengths, the whole unit becomes stronger than any single species could achieve alone." Kimnari had become something she never expected: a galactic educator. Her methods for organizing civilian resistance had evolved into techniques for organizing civilian cooperation. She traveled from world to world, teaching communities how to work together across species lines. "During the war, we learned that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they worked together," she explained to a mixed group of parents from 6 different species. "Now we're teaching our children that cooperation is normal, not extraordinary." The economic transformation of the galaxy had been as dramatic as the political changes. Dr. Lim Taejin's research centers had developed technologies that made resource scarcity a thing of the past. When 47 worlds shared their knowledge and resources freely, abundance replaced competition. The Valturi kept species fighting over limited resources, he observed during a conference on galactic economics. "But when we pool our knowledge, we discover that the galaxy has enough for everyone." Scarcity was artificial, created by those who profited from conflict. Perhaps the most significant change was in how species viewed themselves and each other. The old divisions between advanced and primitive civilizations had disappeared. Every species contributed something valuable to the galactic community. The crystalline beings provided mathematical insights that revolutionized physics. The Keplerians shared agricultural techniques that ended hunger on dozens of worlds. A species of aquatic creatures offered perspective on long-term thinking that helped with environmental planning. Even species that had been considered primitive by Valturi standards contributed knowledge that proved invaluable. As Ambassador Lee Sun-hee prepared for humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Andromeda Galaxy, she reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying day when alien ships first appeared over Earth. "I never wanted to conquer the galaxy," she said during her farewell speech. "We just wanted to be free. But in fighting for our freedom, we discovered something amazing. When one species becomes free, it can help others find freedom too. And when everyone is free, everyone becomes stronger." The farewell ceremony was attended by representatives from every member world of the Galactic Cooperation Council. Former enemies stood side by side, celebrating humanity's new mission not with fear, but with excitement about what might be discovered in distant galaxies. General Kravox, now Professor Kravox, stood among the crowd watching the human diplomatic fleet prepare for departure. 2 years of studying humanity had taught him lessons that 3 centuries of military conquest never could.